Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're cutting off our ears and talking Van Gogh.
This is a big episode for us. We're covering one of the greats.
Yeah, it's like we're like official art talking people.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Now, people think of him as one of the greats, but we're going to get down to the truth of it all today, that's for sure.
Yeah. We put on our fucking detective caps again.
Dude, I love the detective hat. That's one of my favorite hats we have.
Fucking the trash cats are on the case.
Yeah, he's kind of a psycho. But how was your week, man?
It's been all right. Time keeps on slipping into the future. I had we were going to record earlier this week, but I had a fucking migraine that knocked me the fuck out.
I figured. I was like, just get better.
The worst part is that aura when it's like, it's coming. It's like all you have is like some light sensitivity. And other than that, it's like,
I never get the auras much, but I always think it's like the most romantic part of a migraine.
You can call it that.
It's angel vision.
It's in a way, it's the warning of like, hey, if you have to drive somewhere in the next half hour, you should do it right now.
Yes.
You need to go home. You need to do it now because you're going to be down for the fucking count. So.
Dude, I used to use this nerve pain medication that if you take a bunch of it, your vision gets shiny. It's like everything's reflective metal, and it's
sounds terrible.
It is terrible, but it's really interesting.
How was your week?
It's been okay. The last week and a half, I did get an opportunity to go to that Van Gogh immersive exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to that twice, actually. Someone was kind enough to get me tickets right after my family got tickets. So I got to go twice. And I got to say, there was some really cool shit mixed with a lot of really lame stuff. But I had an awesome time, and it really helped, put this episode together. So
the art's so nice, you saw it twice.
Yeah. Some weird stuff, the emergent stuff, 3D motion graphics. There was a VR part. It was cool stuff. And overall, it's been just a busy, chill but grinding week. So I'm doing okay.
I feel like if you showed Van Gogh his art in a VR setting, he'd probably shit himself.
That's something we've discussed doing an episode about in the future. Is like the ethics, just morals involved of changing an artist's work, right? Like all these people are profiting off his work, and now you can go see a concert of a Tupac hologram where they change his abs. Like they actually change Tupac's abs for these concerts now. Like there's weird questions involved in changing the work of an artist, but we'll do a deep dive on that one of these days. Oh,
hell
dude.
Yeah.
Congrats on the computer.
Hell yeah, man. That should be not by next recording, but the recording after that should be set up.
That's so exciting, man.
Yeah, should be cool.
New gear, your setup's all the way together. You're doped out over there.
Yeah, it should be pretty fucking sick. I've been wanting it for a while, and I'm glad I was able to put that together this year.
Like a regular Twitch streamer with that setup.
Right. I mean, it should be powerful enough I can do all that. I was considering the idea of capture card situation, like what that would look like, but we'll stick with the computer first for now. And
we're getting there. So I guess we do Van Gogh now, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you got honors, right?
Oh, yeah, I do. So a couple honorable mentions, cool art this last week or so. I'm going to go through these quick because we got a lot to do today. This first one, this week there was an art activist protest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a group, it was two people, they were climate activists from this group called Just Stop Oil.
Okay.
And they run into this museum in London, and they take some rolled up prints, right? And they roll them over a famous painting. They tape it together so you can't see the painting, and then they super glued their hands to the frame. In the middle of this museum, the London National Gallery, this was last Monday, and they did it in front of a group of students on a school trip, and the students are like cheering them on.
Damn right.
And it was just some like anti-oil activist thing, but it was pretty based.
I'm down for it. Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, like that's way cooler than whatever painting it was. Like, even if it was a painting I loved, I love the idea of super gluing yourself to the frame of something expensive.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Even, you know, by the time they get you off, there's going to be damage done.
Hell yeah, fuck art. Second honorable mention, we have been meaning to say this forever. Yeah. So now is our opportunity. We just need to do a quick shout out to the one person listening to our podcast in England.
Is it a shout out or a call out?
I'll go with shout out.
I mean, okay, that's fair. I was gonna say if you're the one person in England and you know who you are is listening to our podcast on a pretty regular basis,
enough to make a noticeable percentage of our plays all from one town, so it has to be one person that's listened a bunch. Yeah, and we thought we should just shout you out, say thank you. Reach out to us anytime.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you're the only person in that entire country and you haven't reached out to us, why?
We're challenging you to a duel.
Yeah. You know how they do in England.
Of course. Next honorable mention, if you haven't seen it, definitely go watch Loving Vincent. It is such a beautiful movie. It tells Van Gogh's story, but it's made of like thousands of paintings. They had all these digital artists draw or digitally paint each frame of the movie, and the movie is like you're in a Van Gogh painting and you see all of his famous paintings in his like the whole thing. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a trip.
It's cool. Really very impressive. And last one, we're very excited about this one. We have an awesome Trash Wave track that we're going to play at the end of the episode. I've been making inroads with the Trash Wave community through my brother John and his Discord group. So we have an awesome track to play at the end of the episode. This song is by the artist Sonefucked. Sonefucked, nice. Which is such a great name.
Yeah. She
was kind enough to send us this wild track called Spoiled Little Brat. In the theme of Van Gogh. Yeah. And we're going to play that as our outro today. So stick around at the end. Please check her music out. Super talented, harsh but melodic, electronic trash wave stuff. You can find her music at Sonefucked, SEWNFKT, on Instagram, Twitter, and SoundCloud. It's the same on all three of them, at Sonefuck. So cool. Very excited to play at the end.
Fuck yeah.
So I guess we got to kick this off, huh?
Yeah, let's get Van going.
Oh, boy.
Vincent William van Gogh was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who posthumously became one of the most famous and influential figures in Western art history. In a decade, he created about 2,100 artworks, including around 860 oil paintings, most of which date from the last 2 years of his life. In these final years, this averaged to an astounding new piece of art every 36 hours. That's fucking bonkers.
That's real artist numbers, right? That's obsession. That's passion.
Say anything that you will about Van Gogh, fucking prolific. He Definitely. Put out a ton of shit.
Yeah.
They include landscapes, still lifes, portraits, and self-portraits, and are characterized by bold colors and dramatic, impulsive, and expressive brushwork that contributed to the foundations of modern art. He was not commercially successful and, struggling with severe depression and poverty, committed suicide at the age of 37.
Allegedly. So that
True. Yeah, allegedly.
It's, widely believed he committed suicide, and we're not discrediting that by any means, but there's a little bit of a mystery to that, and we're going to briefly explore that towards the end. Mm-hmm. But the official story is that he died of suicide.
Yeah.
But we should start at the beginning. Vincent van Gogh was born on March 30th of 1853 in Groot Zundert, North Brabant, Netherlands.
Nailed it.
I'm just gonna do my best, guys, with the pronunciation.
That's all we can do.
He was born into an upper middle class family. As a child, he was serious, quiet, and thoughtful. He began drawing at an early age, and as a young man worked various odd jobs and then became an art dealer. With the help of his art dealer uncle, also named Vincent Van Gogh, the young artist spent his early years restlessly traveling as he bought and sold art. During these years, he acquired a collection and passion of Japanese woodblock prints and intensely studied their technique.
Van Gogh grew up in a predominantly Catholic province in the Netherlands. He was the oldest surviving child of Theodorus Van Gogh, a minister of the Dutch Reformed Church, and his wife, Anna Cornelia Carbentus.
Damn.
Van Gogh was given the name of his grandfather and of a brother stillborn exactly a year before his birth. Van Gogh's mother was a rigid and religious woman who emphasized the importance of family to the point of claustrophobia for those around her. Theodorus's salary was modest, but the church supplied the family with a house, a maid, 2 cooks, a gardener, a carriage, and a horse. And Anna instilled in the children a duty to uphold the family's high social position.
So he kind of grew up as a rich church boy.
Yeah.
Interesting. He was taught at home by his mother and a governess, and in 1860 was sent to the village school. Then in 1864, he was placed in boarding school, where he felt abandoned and he campaigned to come home. Instead, in 1866, his parents sent him to middle school in Tilburg, where he was deeply unhappy. He later would write that his youth was austere, cold, and sterile.
Those are good words.
Yeah.
Those are the brutal words.
It's so bleak.
It paints a picture.
It reminds me of like the American Gothic, right? Like just bleak, gray skies forever.
Yeah. During his travels, Vincent became depressed after he was transferred to London. He turned to religion and spent time as a Protestant missionary in southern Belgium. Vincent very nearly followed in his father's footsteps as a minister, but fortunately for us all, he ultimately chose art instead of a career as a minister.
Classic artist behavior, betrayed by God early on.
Yeah.
I mean, how else do you become a prolific artist? To show support for his impoverished congregation, he gave up his comfortable lodgings at a bakery to a homeless person and moved to a small hut where he would sleep on straw. His squalid living conditions did not endear him to the church authorities, who dismissed him for undermining the dignity of the priesthood. He then walked the 41 miles to Brussels, but gave in to the pressure from his parents to return home to Etten in the Netherlands. He stayed there until 1880, which caused concern and frustration for his parents. His father was especially frustrated and advised that his son be committed to the lunatic asylum.
Now, this is a beginning of a pattern. I want to point this out here, where his parents are like, come home, and he gets there and they're like, oh, wait, get the fuck out of here. Like they...
Go to a hospital, bro.
Yeah, everybody hates living with Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah.
There's not a single person that he lives with for any extent of time that's like down with it.
He's just difficult. This is classic classic mentally ill artist behavior. He's just difficult to be around.
Yeah. So he continued to draw, often using his neighbors as his subjects. In August of 1881, his recently widowed cousin Cornelia, a.k.a. Key, arrived for a visit. He was thrilled and he took long walks with her. Key was about 7 years older than he was, and she had an 8-year-old son. Van Gogh surprised everyone by declaring his love for her and proposing marriage. She refused with the words, no, nay, never.
Those are about as good as words as you can get for turning down your cousin.
Yeah, completely clarified, like there's no like chance of this. Don't pursue it any further.
Now, I know things were a little different then, but Van Gogh was, he kind of liked the whole cousin love situation.
I mean, the whole family's kind of incestuous. Shit, but
yeah. So after Key returned to Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
After Key returned to Amsterdam. Oh my God. After Key returned to Amsterdam, Van Gogh went to The Hague to try to sell paintings and to meet with his other second cousin. Oh my God. Anton Mauve. Mauve was a successful artist Van Gogh longed to be, so he really envied his, I believe this was another older cousin.
Yeah.
Mauve invited him to return in a few months and suggested he spend the intervening time working in charcoal and pastels. Van Gogh returned to Etten and followed this advice.
Late in November 1881, Van Gogh wrote a letter to his uncle Johannes, which is Key's father.
The first cousin he loved.
Yeah.
Not the second.
Well, I think Mauve was a dude. Not that he didn't love him, but...
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think he just went to meet with him for career shit. So he wrote a letter to his uncle. This is a letter that he later described as... he described to Theo as an attack on his person. He thought that he was being threatened by Van Gogh for Key's heart.
Gotcha.
Within days, he left for Amsterdam, and Key would not meet him, and her parents wrote that his persistence is disgusting. In despair, he held his left hand in the flame of a lamp with the words, "Let me see her for as long as I can keep my hand in the flame."
Damn, that's hardcore. I actually like that.
He did not recall the event well, but later assumed that his uncle had blown out the flame. Key's father made it clear that her refusal should be heeded and that the two would not marry, largely because of Van Gogh's inability to support himself.
Mauve took Van Gogh on as a student and introduced him to watercolor, which he worked on for the next month before returning home for Christmas. Vincent quarreled with his father, refusing to attend church, and left for The Hague. In January 1882, Mauve introduced him to painting in oil and lent him money to set up a studio. Within a month, Van Gogh and Mauve fell out, possibly over the viability of drawing from plaster casts. Van Gogh could only afford to hire people from the streets as models, a practice of which Mauve seemed to have disapproved. In June, Van Gogh suffered a bout of gonorrhea and spent 3 weeks in a hospital. Based. Soon after, he first painted in oils, bought with money borrowed from his brother Theo. He liked the medium, and he spread the paint liberally, scraping from the canvas and working back with the brush. He wrote that he was surprised at how good the results were. So this is like, he is experimenting and finding his mediums during this time. He's learning from his cousin Mauve. Mm-hmm. He's, doing charcoal, then watercolors. Now he's kind of graduating to oil.
Just, in between lighting his hand on fire and threatening his uncle.
Trying to marry his cousin, know. All the good stuff. Gonorrhea.
Yeah, getting gonorrhea,
Can't forget gonorrhea. If you forget gonorrhea, it is all bad.
So,
where did I put that gonorrhea?
Several trips to Paris during this period gave him the opportunity to enjoy the rich artistic life of the city and to visit museums and art galleries. Despite this, he drifted in ill health and solitude, as he created his early known paintings before he would return home to his parents. Vincent sometimes would trade his work at cafes or markets for the means to survive, but it was not enough. Always his advocate, his younger brother Theo supported him financially, and the two kept a long correspondence by letter. Of Vincent's copious correspondences, of which include 844 letters, 652 were addressed to his brother Theo.
Wow, that says so much about their relationship.
Yeah. And dude, the fucking letters, though. There's so fucking many. I mean, I guess that's like the way that you communicated with people back then, but it's so fucking many.
It's so cool they all exist, though, too.
Yeah.
Because these letters, they're the most comprehensive primary source on Van Gogh. It's these correspondences between him and his younger brother Theo. Their lifelong relationship, and most of what is known of Vincent's thoughts and theories on art are recorded in these hundreds of letters. They exchanged these letters from 1872 until 1890. Theo Van Gogh was also an art dealer and provided Vincent and his brother with financial and emotional support, as well as access to influential people on the contemporary art scene.
So Theo kept all of Vincent's letters to him, while Vincent kept only a few of the letters he received. After both had died, Theo's widow, Johanna, arranged for the publication of some of their letters. A few appeared in 1906 and 1913. The majority were published in 1914. Vincent's letters are eloquent and expressive and have been described as having a diary-like intimacy, in reading in parts like an autobiography. One translator wrote that their publication adds a fresh dimension to the understanding of Van Gogh's artistic achievement, an understanding granted to us by virtually no other painter.
There are more than 600 letters from Vincent to Theo and around 40 from Theo to Vincent. There are 22 letters to his sister Will, which is a funny name for his sister, 58 to the painter Anton van Rappard, 22 to Emile Bernard, as well as individual letters to Paul Signac, Paul Gauguin, and the critic Albert Auer.
That's the sound when your car's not starting the way it's supposed to. It goes.
Some are illustrated with sketches, many are undated, but art historians have been able to place most in chronological order. Problems in transcription and dating remain, mainly with those posted from Arles, France. While there, Vincent wrote around 200 letters in Dutch, French, and English. There is a gap in the record when he lived in Paris, as the brothers Vincent and Theo lived together and had no need to correspond. That makes sense.
By March 1882, Cousin Mauve appeared to have gone cold towards Van Gogh, and he stopped replying to his letters. He had learned of Van Gogh's new domestic arrangement with an alcoholic prostitute, It feels so weird calling out somebody like that.
We kind of forgot to make a note of it, but I think independently we debated a little bit about how to use some of the wording, and I think because that's what, sex workers at the time were called. It's what we have to use, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna do this.
An alcoholic
Emphasis on the alcoholic prostitute. By March 1882, Cousin Mauve appeared to have gone cold towards Van Gogh, and he stopped replying to his letters. He had learned of Van Gogh's new domestic arrangement with the quote-unquote alcoholic prostitute, Clisina Maria Siene Hornick, and her young daughter. Van Gogh had met Siene towards the end of January 1882, when she had a 5-year-old daughter and was pregnant. She gave birth to a baby boy who she named Willem. When Van Gogh's father discovered the details of their relationship, he put pressure on his son to abandon Siene and her 2 children. Vincent at first defied him and considered moving the family out of the city. But in late 1883, he left Siene and the children.
Wow, so he was a family man for a second.
Starting to try to be.
Yeah, didn't last long.
If it wasn't for the damn church.
So poverty may have pushed Siene back into prostitution. The home became less happy, and Van Gogh may have felt family life was irreconcilable with his artistic development. Siene gave her daughter to her mother, and baby Willem to her brother. Willem believed Van Gogh was his father, but the timing of his birth makes this very unlikely. Many years later, having outlived Van Gogh, Siene would drown herself in the river Scheldt in 1904. In September 1883, Van Gogh again returned to northern Netherlands. In December, driven by loneliness, he went to live with his parents again. His parents lived, I believe it was a village called Noonan?
Noonan.
Yeah.
While there, Van Gogh focused on painting and drawing. Working outside and very quickly, he completed sketches and paintings of weavers and their cottages. Van Gogh also completed his painting, The Parsonage Garden at Noonan, which, by the way, was stolen from the singer Laren in March 2020. From August 1884, Margot Begeman, a neighbor's daughter 10 years his senior, joined him on his forays. She fell in love, and he reciprocated, though less enthusiastically. Once again, Vincent wanted to get married, but neither side of their families were in favor. Margot was distraught and took an overdose of strychnine, but survived after Van Gogh rushed her to a nearby hospital.
Oh, wow. Now, when researching this, I was a bit curious on how she had access to strychnine, and it's kind of interesting reading about old drugs like laudanum and absinthe and all these different things. Like, heroin was less of a thing, but there was like medical grade morphine. So I was very curious how she got strychnine. So I don't know if that was like an actual medicine she got hold of or what, but yeah, she tried to overdose on strychnine. It's so brutal.
Yeah.
In a letter to his brother Theo, Vincent wrote, "It was strychnine she took, but the dose must have been too small. Or perhaps she took chloroform or laudanum with it as a narcotic, which would be a counterpoison against strychnine. But in short, she took the counterpoison which the doctor prescribed just in time." I also just wanted to point out, it's really cool. All these letters that Van Gogh wrote, all 800, 600, 800, whatever it was, they're all available to read online. And there's a site with all of Van Gogh's letters unabridged, and it's really cool to read through them, like in his own words.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
The one website was www.webexhibits.org/Van Gogh. One word. Very cool. For me, it instantly felt like going back in time to hear his own words in writing about, his lover's suicide attempt. It's pretty wild.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So Margot survived, but not long after, on the 26th of March 1885, Vincent's father died of a heart attack. During this time, there was interest in Vincent's art from a dealer in Paris early in 1885. Theo asked Vincent if he had paintings ready to exhibit. In May, Van Gogh responded with his first major work, The Potato Eaters, and a series of, quote, peasant character studies, which were the culmination of several years of work. So I think this is also super on brand for Van Gogh and his life. Things start looking up for him, and his father dies. And
from butter veins.
Yeah. When it rains, it fucking pours. But I love this description of this painting, The Potato Eaters. You've probably seen it before. It's pretty popular.
This is one I didn't know was his. I can clearly see that it is now, but upon initially seeing it years in the past from memory, you can tell his style was still developing. It's not like what you would think of as a classic Van Gogh quite yet.
Yeah. He's using a lot more muddied colors and shit back then.
Yeah.
A group of 5 sit around a small wooden table with a large platter of food, while one person pours drinks from a kettle in a dark room with an overhead lantern. The Potato Eaters, 1885.
When he complained that Theo was not making enough effort to sell his paintings in Paris, his brother responded that they were too dark and not keeping in with the bright style of Impressionism. So Impressionism is what's popping at the time.
Yeah, you had Monet and Manet popping off around this time.
Yeah.
They were straight making bank up in Paris.
As living artists. And meanwhile, Van Gogh's painting these dreary, hungry, starving potato eaters.
Yeah.
In August, his work was publicly exhibited for the first time, which that's such a big deal. That first time an artist gets their work exhibited. That's huge. The work was shown in shop windows of an art dealer in Lourdes in The Hague. Around this time, supposedly during September of 1855, one of Vincent's young models became pregnant. She accused Van Gogh of forcing himself upon her, and the village priest forbade parishioners to model for him. Like many of the sordid details of Van Gogh's life, it is hard to say what the exact truth may have been, but based on his track record with women, I don't find it difficult to believe that he did a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
The detail of the priest forbidding parishioners to model for him is a bit telling. And what I find frustrating is I feel like art historians know the answer to these type of questions, and it's always posed as like, oh, it was so long ago. What a mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it when I read things about artists that are like sketchy like that, it just feels like there's like some interference. Like we don't want to say that an artist was bad in their personal life because we value their art so high. And I'm a big believer in separating the art from the artist. There's tons of artists that are just outstanding that are pieces of shit in their personal life.
Agreed.
Yeah.
After that, Vincent moved to Antwerp that November, and he rented a room above a paint dealer's shop. He became ill and run down by overwork, poor diet, and excessive smoking, and his alleged love of absinthe. He started to attend drawing classes at the Antwerp Academy on the 18th of January, 1886. He quickly got into trouble with Charles Verlat, the director of the academy and teacher of a painting class, because of his unconventional painting style.
Typical art student behavior.
Yeah.
Now, you have to wonder, how much paint and art supplies do you think he stole from that paint dealer shop? You know, he's living right above there. He had to have been jacking shit constantly.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, I think it's worth pointing out, at one point during one of Van Gogh's many hospitalizations, one of the doctors noted that he wasn't qualifiable as an absinther, where basically the doctor notes that he may have been a bit of an alcoholic, definitely had a drinking problem, but he wasn't just addicted to absinthe, which I guess was qualifiable as a diagnosis in and of itself.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, man. I've always wanted to try real absinthe, because you can get absinthe, in the U.S. I think
almost every bar carries some kind of quote unquote absinthe.
Right, but it's not the real thing.
I get that wormwood and shit.
Yeah, I think you can get it in Canada, but yeah, it gets psychoactively activated, in part due to the heat melting of the sugar. There's supposedly a bit of an exaggeration on that, but the real absinthe does have actual psychoactive psychedelic properties that no modern absinthe in the States at least has. So it's a pretty interesting combination, right? He's getting pretty whacked out a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So he's got this typical art student behavior where he's quarreling with the art academy leaders, right?
Mm-hmm. As also was hot to do. Monet was into that.
Yeah, and what's his name? The sculptor we really like. Sokolsky.
Yeah, Sokolsky, yeah.
Vincent lived in poverty and ate poorly. He preferred to spend the money that Theo sent him in the letters on painting materials and models. Bread, coffee, and tobacco became the staples of his diet. In February of 1886, he wrote to Theo that he could only remember eating 6 hot meals since the previous May. His teeth became loose and painful. Van Methmouth needs to go to a goddamn dentist.
God damn.
As soon as I read, right, that his teeth were painful and loose, I felt like I could understand who this man was so much better. It makes so much sense that this man's mouth hurt all the time.
Yeah. So around this time is also when Van Gogh started seriously collecting these Japanese ukiyo-e woodcuts. He would later incorporate elements of their style into the background of some of his paintings. He was also, once again, drinking very heavily now. And he was hospitalized between February and March of 1886, when he was probably also treated for syphilis.
Super based. This dude, he gets around.
He gets the clap. He's got his syphilis going on.
No,
he's drinking all the time, smoking all the time.
I've heard the mentions of, the STDs, but they never really address, syphilis can be so debilitating. Yeah. I'd be curious to know how much that affected his mental health as well.
Right.
So Van Gogh had also clashed with the instructor of his drawing class. This man's name was Franz Vinck, V-I-N-C-K. When Van Gogh was required to draw the Venus of Milo during a drawing class, he instead produced the limbless, naked torso of a Flemish peasant woman. His instructor regarded this as a defiance against his artistic guidance and made corrections to Van Gogh's drawings with a crayon so vigorously that he tore the paper. Van Gogh then flew into a violent rage and shouted at him, saying,
"You clearly do not know what a young woman is like. God damn it. A woman must have hips, buttocks, and a pelvis in which she can carry a baby."
What an amazing quote.
Yeah.
According to some accounts, this was the last time Van Gogh attended classes at the academy, and he later left for Paris. On the 31st of March, 1886, which was about a month after the confrontation with his instructor, the teachers of the academy decided that 17 students, which included Van Gogh, had to repeat a year. The story that Van Gogh was expelled from the academy is therefore unfounded. Kinda. He may have left on his own, but it was because they basically held him back a year for being an asshole.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yeah.
After some time spent in Paris, painting and staying with his brother, he basically made himself sick from constant drinking and smoking. So this is, again, a true artist's lifestyle.
He's punk rock as fuck.
Yeah. His early works, mostly still lifes and depictions of peasant laborers and miners, contain few signs of the vivid color that distinguished his later work. Later that year, he would start to meet members of the avant-garde, including Émile Bernard and Paul Gauguin, who were reacting against the Impressionist sensibility.
As his work developed, he created a new approach to still life and landscape. His paintings grew brighter as he developed a style that became fully realized during his stay in Arles in the south of France in 1888. During this period, he broadened his subject matter to include a series of olive trees, wheat fields, and sunflowers. He really loved those damn sunflowers. He did a lot of them. And some of them are great. When looking at a series of them, though, the only ones I really liked were the more realistic ones, the ones that were less stylized. There's something
that were less like a Van Gogh.
Yeah, there's something about, like, I don't know. I'm just not crazy about his still lives. They feel a little too childish.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So Van Gogh sought refuge in Arles. He seems to have moved there with the thoughts of founding an art colony. In a letter, he described it as a foreign country. The zouaves, the brothels, the adorable little Arlesian going to our first communion, the priest in his surplice who looks like a dangerous rhinoceros, the people drinking absinthe, all seem to me creatures from another world.
What an amazing and super creepy quote.
The priest in his surplice who looks like a dangerous rhinoceros. Maybe he was drinking absinthe.
Yeah, but there's something, he talks about little girls a lot.
He does. That is true.
Even if there's a difference, like, in culture and time, I don't know. It's just little, based on his track record, a little creepy still.
Yeah.
The time in Arles became one of Van Gogh's most prolific periods. He completed 200 paintings and more than 100 drawings in watercolors. He was enchanted by the local countryside and the light. His works from this period are rich in yellow, ultramarine, and mauve. They include harvests, wheat fields, and the general rural landscapes from the area.
Van Gogh wrote that in his piece, The Night Cafe, he tried to, quote, express the idea that the cafe is a place where one can ruin oneself, go mad, or commit a crime.
Well, that's amazing, but that is not what you're supposed to do at cafes, bro.
Yeah, that's the place where you hide out after you commit the crime.
Exactly. This dude's doing it backwards. He's
going to the cafe and committing crimes.
Wow.
This is why his life is so fucked up.
Unmanageable. Get this man to a 12-steps program. Jesus Christ. Need your 30-day coin chip, go. Hi, my name is Vincent. I'm an alcoholic. Van Gogh suffered from psychotic episodes and delusions, and though he worried about his mental stability, he often neglected his physical health and chose to drink instead. Sounded like he wasn't that worried about his mental instability.
Yeah.
Troubled by his poor mental health, the crises began to become more frequent and more violent. While I find it hard to say for certain, it is said that Van Gogh suffered from epilepsy and schizophrenia, as he often experienced seizures and hallucinations. It has also been suggested that he may have been colorblind to some extent. While his signature sharp, short brushstrokes are often attributed as an aesthetic choice influenced by the Japanese woodblock prints that he loved, it is thought that it may also be in part due to this potential colorblindness. These bold strokes, combined with bright, distinct colors, may have felt very natural in his eyes. I think a similar comparison would be how Monet's nearsightedness also influenced his painting style.
And don't forget about his ultravision.
Ultravision?
Yeah, he could see the ultraviolet light because of his cataracts.
Monet, yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was so cool.
It's absolute superhero.
So I do want to point out, though.
A superhero who just plays with lily pads.
Dust my lily pad.
Dust my lilies, motherfucker.
But I feel like it's so often said as a certainty that Van Gogh was either epileptic or schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like that's fair. Like, even if the doctors at the time diagnosed him with these things, they weren't doing brain scans. And a lot of this is like conjecture. But in art exhibits or in, a lot of historians' accounts of Van Gogh, sometimes it is said as a certainty what his medical diagnoses were.
Right.
And really all we know for certain is that he did have seizures and he did have hallucinations.
Despite the bright colors, his work often still held a somber emotional tone. His paintings bear the mark of his unstable, tormented personality. Excessive tobacco and alcohol, tiredness, and health problems made his condition worsen.
One of the most infamous events of Van Gogh's troubled life was the incident involving his left ear. Hotly contested, accounts vary as to the actions leading up to the occurrence, and there is much confusion around the motive of this maiming. At this point in his life, Vincent was living with a fellow artist and friend, Paul Gauguin, in a house dubbed the Yellow House, and the generally agreed upon story is what follows.
So basically, Van Gogh is obsessed with Gauguin. He feels like if Gauguin hangs out with him and they work together, that his career will actually take off. So he pleads with him for fucking years with letters. Like, hey, come out to Arles, come stay with me, come work with me. And Gauguin's like, kind of brushes it off. And eventually, like, they start talking about it a little bit more seriously, but he's still like taking his fucking time. During this whole period, Vincent's been living in this unfurnished fucking house. He has like a chair and like a bedroll. And it's not until Gauguin agrees to come stay that he actually gets some more furniture and decorations together for the crib.
And we can see this in his work, like these paintings of the bedroom, and those are mostly from the Yellow House, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Gauguin agrees and finally comes to stay and work with Vincent. And they're like looking at art together and everything seems chill for a while. Also during this time, like Vincent made like a ton of pieces. He's like within a couple of weeks of him being there, Vincent's made like 40 or 50 pieces or something. And Gauguin made one like the whole time. And it was a portrait of Vincent Van Gogh.
Wow. Do you think Vincent was just like super lonely and trying to like impress or kind of court his new friend?
Absolutely, yes. So, like every person that Van Gogh spends any amount of time with, their relationship begins to deteriorate. Van Gogh admired Gauguin and wanted to be treated as his equal, but Gauguin was arrogant and domineering, which frustrated Van Gogh. They often quarreled. Van Gogh increasingly feared that Gauguin was going to desert him, and the situation, which Van Gogh described as one of excessive tension, rapidly headed towards a crisis point.
Damn, so it's getting crazy up in the Yellow House.
Yeah, they're literally getting violent with each other and shit. Like, it was a real bad situation.
Just two drunk pals hanging out.
Yeah, you know? Two drunk, well, I guess I was going to say Frenchmen, but that's not.
Whoa!
Well, no, I just meant that Van Gogh wasn't a Frenchman.
Those alcoholic Frenchmen. The exact sequence that led to the mutilation of his ear are not known. Gauguin said 15 years later that the night followed several instances of physically threatening behavior by Vincent. Their relationship was complex, and Theo may have owed money to Gauguin, who suspected the brothers were exploiting him financially. It seems likely that Vincent realized that Gauguin was planning to leave. The following days saw heavy rain, leading to the two men being shut inside together. Gauguin realized that Van Gogh followed him after he left for a walk, and he rushed towards me, an open razor in his hand. This account is uncorroborated. Gauguin was almost certainly absent from the house that night, most likely staying in a hotel. So Gauguin's not there, right? That's what's believed to be most likely. So Vincent's just like straight tripping.
Yeah.
His version of the story is not likely what he says it is.
Yeah. After an altercation, Van Gogh returned to his room where he seemingly heard voices and either wholly or in part severed his left ear with a razor, causing severe bleeding. He bandaged the wound, wrapped the ear in paper, and delivered the package to a woman at a brothel that Van Gogh and Gauguin both frequented.
Like deli meat.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Here's a quarter ounce of my ear.
Yeah, to the brothel.
He included a note that read,
"Here is a souvenir of me."
Van Gogh eventually stumbled home and fell asleep. The next day, Gauguin returned to the house, discovering a crowd mobbing the residence, including several police officers. Assuming Van Gogh dead, the police officer asked Gauguin,
"What have you done to your comrade, sir?"
Discovering the scene, the traces of blood, and Van Gogh asleep, Gauguin took pause. He begged the police commissioner to wake Van Gogh up very carefully and tell him that he had left for Paris. When he woke up, perfectly lucid, Van Gogh was taken to St. Paul Hospital for treatment.
Damn. Dude, that was a smart move. He was like, "Please, officer, tell him I am in another country."
Yeah, tell him I fucking left.
And I know what you're wondering. The ear was, in fact, brought to the hospital, but they did not attempt to reattach it as too much time had passed, and the wound was pretty severe.
Yeah. I actually have a story related to this. The only time I've ever seen someone actually get their finger cut off, it was just the tip of somebody's finger. But they were using a mandolin at the restaurant and cutting cucumbers, and their fucking fingertip came off, sitting on the fucking cutting board. And we picked it up, put it in ice, and we took this. I took this guy up to the hospital. And while we get there and we get him back to the ER, and they're like looking at his finger, and we pulled out the bag. We pulled out this bag with the fingertip in it, and the nurse looks at it and then throws it immediately into the trash.
Oh, shit. That's hilarious.
Didn't even ask him if he wanted to keep it or nothing, just threw it in the trash.
It's like, that's disgusting. I don't know why you brought this.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, we can't put this back on. I was like, okay, cool. So, immediately after this happens, he's in the hospital. Van Gogh has no recollection of the event, suggesting that he may have suffered an acute mental breakdown. The hospital diagnosis was acute mania with generalized delirium, and within a few days, the local police ordered that he remain in psychiatric care.
Damn. So they were like, "Yeah, you're looking rough out here, Vincent.
Your ship's busted, Vincent. You got to stay here for a little while."
Just for a little while. During the first few days of his treatment, Van Gogh repeatedly and unsuccessfully asked for Gauguin, who had stated, quote, "Tell him I have left for Paris. The sight of me might prove fatal for him." Gauguin fled Arles, never to see Van Gogh again. They would later resume correspondence with one another, without any expression of resentment. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, I guess he got away and he was like, as long as we keep our distance, we can be cool. We can be friends.
Yeah, certain friends or just people in your life, you do just have to love from a distance. And even if you know you can't be near them for whatever reason, like they're insane and cut off their own ears, you still love them, you know? Despite a pessimistic diagnosis, Van Gogh recovered and returned to his house on January 21st, 1889. A few days after his return home, Van Gogh painted 2 self-portraits with his ear bandaged. And these self-portraits, I mean, they're nice portraits, but they're like such quintessential pieces of his work.
Yeah, it's the one that everyone thinks of when you think of Van Gogh now.
It was so wise of him to do that. Like it does show a level of keenness or insight or just understanding of his work and the power of art. Like, I don't know if he knew he would become like famous for that or that, but he knew something about it was emotionally important enough that he had to capture the immediate aftermath of such a violent self-mutilation. I know there's a word for it, to make something ugly, but to uglify yourself like that, it reminds me of the throwing of acid, which there's also a word for, but when you throw acid in someone's face, and it's more done to like permanently
turn them into the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, to take away their beauty like that, that's such a brutal thing to do to someone, and to do it to yourself like that without, like, it wasn't like a clear suicide attempt or anything. It was a way of just permanently disfiguring himself. It's very odd, and I think largely just like a Kurt Cobain or whatever, that these tendencies or wildness or just leaning into self-destruction is part of what makes him so noteworthy. And I think it, like you mentioned earlier, the juxtaposition between his bright colors and expressive nature, there's part of that where you still can feel this heavy emotion and tone to it throughout his work. But there is part of me that definitely wonders, if his life wasn't so tragic, I wonder if we would still pick up on that dark emotional tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So much of his success,
the tragedy is very real with him.
Yes, and it makes it's like you have the beautiful painting, this bright, beautiful painting, but propping it up is all of that darkness. All of the tragedy are like the stones propping up the painting in the background. I don't know. Van Gogh also made a portrait of the doctor who treated his ear, then gave the painting to the physician. But this doctor was not fond of the painting, and instead of hanging it up in his office of like, this is a patient I helped that painted me. Instead, he used it to repair a chicken coop, which is just about the funniest thing you could do with any painting. So he uses it to repair a chicken coop and eventually gives it away. But the painting survived. And in 2016, this portrait was housed at the Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts and is estimated to be worth over $50 million.
It's got bird shit on it. For sure there's some it doesn't matter if they tried to clean it or what, there are speckles of bird shit all up in that.
I would really hope this is one of the examples where the art restoration people did not clean the up. You know what I mean? Like, that's half the value. That's $25 million of bird shit.
Yeah, it's got story to it. Yeah, that's $25 million just in bird shit. The painting itself is not worth that much. It's the story, it's the history of it. That's what makes it expensive.
Definitely.
So Van Gogh spent the following month going between hospital and his home, suffering from hallucinations and delusions of poisoning. In March, the police closed his house after a petition by 30 townspeople who described him as the red-headed madman. 2 months later, he left Arles and voluntarily entered an asylum in Saint-Rémy province. Around this time, he wrote, quote, "Sometimes moods of indescribable anguish, sometimes moments when the veil of time and fatality of circumstances seem to be torn apart for an instant."
Damn, I kind of feel that one.
Yeah.
For real. That's heavy, man. Like, he gets out of a hospital and he knew himself well enough to know that by choice he should go straight to an asylum.
Yeah.
He was struggling, and to me that shows that he was trying, at least.
Yeah. He maybe was more lucid than he had been
previously.
Yeah.
He had 2 cells with barred windows, one of which he used as a studio. This institution was located in a remote area, surrounded by wheat fields, vineyards, and olive groves, which would become the subject for many of his paintings. Some of his works from this time are characterized by swirls, such as the Starry Night. He was allowed short, supervised walks, during which time he painted cypresses and olive trees. Van Gogh suffered from several devastating epileptic fits, which prevented him from working. my inflection. My inflection. Devastating epileptic fits, which prevented him from working, leaving him bedridden for weeks.
Between February and April 1890, Van Gogh suffered a severe relapse. Depressed and unable to bring himself to write, he was still able to paint and draw a little during this time, and he asked his mother and his brother to send him drawings and rough work that he had done in the early 1880s, so he could work on new paintings from his old sketches.
During this time at the asylum, he came under the care of homeopathic doctor Paul Gachet. Vincent would eventually discharge himself when he believed recovered and decided to join his brother in Paris, and he moved to the suburb of Auvers. This is where Vincent Van Gogh painted his last pieces.
The exact location where Van Gogh painted his final work, titled Tree Roots, was some 150 meters from the Auberge Ravoux Inn where he was staying, with a stand of trees with a tangle of gnarled roots that grew on a hillside. Many historians believe Van Gogh may have been working on the painting just hours before his death.
It's also worth noting, originally, a different painting was believed to be his final painting, and semi-recently they discovered it was actually these roots, and that really helped kind of define what he was doing and where in these final hours.
Yeah.
And then he died.
On the 27th of July, 1890, age 37, Van Gogh is believed to have shot himself in the chest with a 7mm Le Fichot pinfire revolver. There were no witnesses, and he died 30 hours after the incident. The shooting may have taken place in the field in which he had been painting, or in a local barn. The bullet was deflected by a rib and passed through his chest without doing apparent damage to internal organs, possibly stopped by his spine.
He was able to walk back to the Auberge Ravoux, where he was attended to by 2 doctors. But without a surgeon present, the bullet could not be removed. The doctors tended to him as well as they could, and then left him alone in his room, smoking his pipe. The following morning, Theo rushed to his brother's side, finding him in good spirits. But within hours, Vincent's health began to fail, suffering from an untreated infection resulting from the wound. He died in the early hours of the 29th of July. According to Theo, Vincent's last words were, "This sadness will last forever."
Super brutal.
Yeah.
After the death of his brother, heartbroken Theo passed away on January 25th of 1891. Years later, Theo's grave was moved to be beside his brother's final resting place.
I believe now they plant sunflowers near the grave sites as well.
Oh, fancy.
The gun Van Gogh was reputed to have used was rediscovered in 1965 and was auctioned on the 19th of June 2019 as the most famous weapon in art history. The gun sold for $182,000, almost 3 times more than expected. It should be noted it has not been definitively proved that this was the actual gun that was used, but it is believed to be most likely.
Some wild shit.
So this is where we're going to kind of get into the mystery of it. This is conspiracy time. This is Steven's Conspiracy Corner.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That should be an ongoing bit.
I'm not sure what I believe with this, but the theory was depicted in the Loving Vincent movie, and I think that kind of helped popularize it in the modern conversations of Van Gogh, but this is something that has been debated by art historians for a long time.
Yeah.
So in the movie, some of the local teenage boys would bully Vincent when he would go to paint out in the fields. So this is when Vincent was living at the Auberge Ravoux, and he would go out every afternoon to the fields, and he'd set up his little paint stand and get out his little paints. And the idea was that this group of teenage boys would bully him sometimes.
I love how in that description, you definitely just bullied him. He went to his little field and he got out his little paints. And
I mean, if you saw an old man painting in a field,
37.
you'd bully him too. Why do I picture of him like 100 years old right now?
I don't know. He's not that much older than us.
So he got bullied by teenagers, though. That's the point.
The suspected murderer was 16-year-old René Secretan. According to rumors at the time, Secretan was your typical surly teen who bullied Vincent for months. It is believed the two got into a scuffle, and Secretan shot Vincent.
Interestingly, a world-renowned handgun/gunshot wound expert, Vincent Di Maio, was asked to re-examine the evidence by a pair of art historians. This pair of art historians were writing an account of Vincent Van Gogh, and they wanted to re-examine this mystery like once and for all. So they hired this very famous handgun and gunshot wound expert. And this expert claimed that the angle of the bullet entering Van Gogh's abdomen was too awkward to be suicide. This forensic evidence is a bit sketchy, though, as the accuracy of the original physician's recorded bullet trajectory is impossible to validate.
They didn't know what the fuck they were doing back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I feel like it's one of those things, whether they did or didn't, the records have seemed to be lost to time, where it's like trying to validate, like, the Bible. Like, good luck, you know? Shit's long gone.
I don't know. 1890, that was long enough ago. They saw a hole in a person and they said, oh, I know how they died. Gunshot wound. End of story.
So that's all it takes. Gunshot wound. It had to have been from a gun, and no sane person shoots himself.
Right.
So
it was probably murder. Or his life was so tragic, we believe it. He probably shot himself.
Yeah, it seems like they fully believed it was suicide.
They had, they couldn't be bothered to investigate this potential murder. They had to go back and smoke cigarettes and drink absinthe. Proponents of the murder theory point to the absence of a suicide note, especially since Van Gogh was a prolific letter writer. But trying to understand Van Gogh's mental state, or that of anyone who kills themselves, especially solely through letters, would be arrogant or foolish. He went through periods of ebullience, followed by periods of manic depression.
I find it a bit hard to believe this theory, though.
Yeah.
That he's just murdered by some teenage kids.
Especially when you see the whole lineage of drama and trauma throughout his life. All of the different pitfalls that he's, I wouldn't even say like scraped his way out of. He just kind of like moves on to the next thing.
Men who cut off their own ears typically are not gonna like get murdered by some teenage kids, right? Like
I would argue very, very passionately that a man who cuts off his own ear is at a higher risk of shooting himself than he is for getting bullied while he's out painting.
Yeah, like if he wanted to, he could turn that crazy on. I think in Loving Vincent, it was kind of portrayed that one of the other boys was bullied into shooting Van Gogh, and that Van Gogh was very empathetic to the kid because the kid was bullied, so he almost kind of went along with it and didn't hold this resentment. And while these ideas are so fascinating and kind of fun to think about, there's just no credibility. It's all conjecture, and it seems I understand why the official accounts and the art historians and museums, I understand why they would want to stick to the line of like, no, it's definitive, it's suicide, that's all we know. But I also understand why they would kind of be inclined to say that even if there was other evidence. But it seems like regardless of the conjecture, you just have to land on that he killed himself until there's any other evidence that, I don't know, is more valid.
Yeah, his well-documented history of just being unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's too much to not take into account. When fucking Paul Gauguin pissed him off, Van Gogh chucked bottles of absinthe at his head. Like, they quarreled enough with, he fought with Theo. He fought with Theo enough that Theo is quoted as saying, "He makes life hard, not only for others, but also for himself."
Yeah. And given Van Gogh's combative nature, it just doesn't seem like he would be the type to let bullies pick on him, whether they were kids or not. Theo believed that Vincent shot himself. And if Theo believed Van Gogh committed suicide, I have to believe Theo is right.
Same.
A brother always knows.
Yeah. Sadly, Van Gogh's paintings did not sell during his lifetime, during which he was generally considered a madman and a failure. Although some collectors recognized the value of his work, he survived primarily from the charity of his brother Theo. His fame came only after his death, when he evolved in the public imagination into a misunderstood genius.
Yeah.
His reputation grew in the early 20th century as elements of his style came to be incorporated by the Fauves and the German Expressionists. He attained widespread critical and commercial success over the ensuing decades and is remembered as an important but tragic painter whose troubled personality typifies the romantic ideal of the tortured artist.
Today, Van Gogh's works are among the world's most expensive paintings to have ever sold. Multiple pieces have sold for over $100 million. His legacy is honored by a museum in his name, the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, which holds the world's largest collection of his paintings and drawings.
As a last note in the weirdness of art history, during the Nazi period, a great number of artworks by Van Gogh changed hands, many of them looted from Jewish collectors who were forced into exile or murdered. Some of these works have disappeared into private collections. Others have since resurfaced in museums or at auction, or have even been reclaimed, often in high-profile lawsuits by their former owners.
Wow.
The German Lost Art Foundation still lists dozens of missing Van Goghs, and the American Alliance of Museums lists 73 Van Goghs on the Nazi-era provenance internet portal.
Damn. Yeah, I in part wanted to mention that because the whole Nazi art troves that were discovered after the war, it's a very interesting story that we want to do a deep dive into how much damage the Nazis did to the art world. But even the Nazis liked Van Gogh.
So if you like Van Gogh, then you're a Nazi.
For real, though, it's crazy how the art markets for decades have profited off of Van Gogh. A mentally ill man's work.
Yeah.
Fortunes worth of money on this man's back.
That he had no connection to. I mean, he is in his lifetime never saw any of that and never will. It's just,
they could have built castles and fed nations off the money that they would make from his work.
Yeah.
And he was just a madman. No fame from it in his life. How strange. I wonder how strange he would feel, you know? Especially for someone kind of so lost in his own surrealness to after your death to find out like how the value of what your life meant to all these people. I don't know. I feel like regardless, he would somehow feel sad though.
Yeah, the wildness that, I don't know, art in general is just, the whole marketing shit's scammy and weird to me. We've gone on at length of that with other.
Yeah, I will say, as much as NFTs and like crypto art fucking sucks, we really do need artists to be implementing these smart contracts, because if Van Gogh had smart contracts, holy fuck, that money would have done so much, like, for his family, you know, like,
yeah,
it just seems so messed up that there can be whole, like, pockets of the economy that live off of a dead man's work, especially such an insane dead man.
Any profits made by this painting of sunflowers will be transferred into cryptocurrency and given to my, I was going to say living relatives, but I'm not sure how many of those there actually are from the Van Gogh family.
So before we kind of decide where we land on Van Gogh,
mm-hmm.
do you feel like his work has been a bit spoiled by his posthumously posthumously fame?
Yeah.
Posthumous?
Yeah. Just keep saying it. It'll sound right if you just keep saying it. Yeah. So I feel like, here's the thing. I don't feel like it's worth all the hype that it gets as art. It's
Way
just
overhyped.
Yeah, and I think, again, I look at it like I look at the Beatles, in a way that, like, I recognize what their presence paved the way for in the sector that they were in. I understand that people would later see his work and draw inspiration from it that led to new movements of art. Mm-hmm. But I'm just not a fan of Van Gogh. I will say, I feel like I didn't know all this history about Van Gogh. I feel like knowing now more about his tragic backstory puts a new, I would say that somberness, that kind of feeling, that melancholy was always there in his work. It just didn't really have a flavor. It didn't really have a voice, I guess. And now knowing this, it's like, oh, this all makes sense now. Like this feeling that I get from looking at these makes a lot more sense.
It is amazing though that, you know, before we know that, we still can feel it. And then when you know it, everything kind of fits in place.
Yeah.
I personally, I feel the fame has spoiled his work for me a bit. I think if he was a random artist, right, that we just discovered and he wasn't popular, there weren't exhibits in museums or whatever, we just found him one day.
Yeah, you're right. I would like the work probably a lot more. I'd be more respectful of it.
It would change my perception quite a bit. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. But when I think of like Monet or like other like highly regarded artists, right, that kind of shaped the modern art world, there's an element of elegance. And while I may in my personal life kind of identify with the madness and trashiness that is Van Gogh's messy life, it doesn't quite feel befitting of such a highly regarded artist. This sounds like super contradicting coming from me of all people, I feel like. But there's something about, like, he feels like a person I know or have known, or a person I've been at moments. And like, not in the genius ways, in the messy ways.
Yeah.
And I think I respect the other artists more. I think I appreciate what he did, but there's part of me that feels like his work's a bit spoiled on me, and also that sometimes even when a person, like, I'm good at separating the artist from the artist, but I do think there's some cases where it is almost or near impossible to fully divorce that. And there's something that feels, I don't know, like it's not just the tragicness, it's kind of like the patheticness. And I don't mean that in a shitty way. I just mean it. The more you kind of get to know him, the more it feels like sad in a like pathetic, struggly kind of way.
Right.
That it's like I still may enjoy the work or whatever, but it doesn't feel like the pedestal his work was on for me, like as a kid or whatever. It feels like, I'm no longer distracted by the shiny frame. And when I look at the pedestal, I just realize it's covered in bird shit and cigarette butts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Chicken shit, cigarettes, and absinthe.
Yeah. So where do you land on Van Gogh overall?
Overall,
Whatever. Like,
yeah.
Did you like the story?
I did. I like the story. I think it's a very tragic story, and it kind of sucks.
It's befitting.
It's good in a way that it sucks, and it sucks in a way that it's good, and it's very fitting. I feel like I have a little bit more respect for the story of Van Gogh.
Yes.
And I think that's where it stops.
Gotcha. So you're way more partial to Monet and the lily pads or something, someone else.
I guess so. No, I wouldn't even say that. I feel like I like Van Gogh or some of Van Gogh's pieces more than I like Monet, but it's still, I just don't really, it doesn't really fucking do anything for me, I guess.
I am a bit surprised that he is really not resonating with you.
No, I don't know. Impressionism in general, I never really saw a lot of the appeal. I get it, and I get why it was important, but I don't really see, it just doesn't resonate with me.
See, I will say, the Starry Night as a child felt like such a magical thing, but I really do feel like it has been spoiled for me by other people, right? Like if I saw some of his stuff in a vacuum, I think it would have been pretty important to me. And it just feels like by circumstance of no fault of his own, the corporatization of artwork has kind of just like made it gross to me,
Yeah.
I think this is what I wrote. I think this is where I land still. I wrote this like a week ago. And I think this is how I still feel. Van Gogh is definitely trashy.
Yeah.
But the more we have learned about him, the more I do feel I can empathize with him and his sad fucking life. But he also just sounds like he was kind of a piece of shit.
Right.
Like, I think when art historians or whatever talk about him, I think maybe his dark side is underplayed. Not so much his dark side, but the things that he did that were bad. I don't know. That I can empathize with it, but it also, I'm getting stuck here, man. I'm flip-flopping, I'm pancaking. I don't know. But I think he was a sick man, not a genius. That's for sure.
Yeah. He's
thought of like he's some magical, in touch with nature, the stars have my answer, destiny. Like he has all these quotes about courage and stuff, but he lived like a sad, sick man, not a genius.
Right.
He paints like an alcoholic. Like alcoholic painters I know are like this man. He's hawking his passion for the next meal. Yeah. And I don't blame him, but that's what it was.
Right.
He seems like he's one of those people that may have had a very sincerely beautiful heart and mind, but they don't get the help they deserve, and they just hurt a bunch of people around them. Even his brushstrokes, when we reflect on his aesthetic, his texture, his brushstrokes, it's always looked at like, this is aesthetic genius. This is his unique way of seeing the world. This is perhaps him overcoming his adversity with like color blindness or epilepsy. But I also think it may just be that he's really obsessive, right? Mm-hmm. He's obsessed with this painting, and he's doing almost like a self-soothing coping mechanism.
Yeah, I was going to say like a crutch almost.
Yeah, like this is, which is great. Like that's how he's working through things. Whether
what art's about too.
Yeah, even if I'm totally wrong about the strokes being like some sort of soothing thing, him working as prolifically as he did, it is the mark of a true artist. And him being that obsessive about it is the escape. It's the pursuit. It's the way to like, I don't know, like protect yourself and figure shit out in the world. And I very much feel that strongly with him. I think he was a sick man. a tragic character. I don't think he was a genius, but I think overall I can land that he was a mediocre artist.
I think that's very fair.
He's okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's generous, but I'd say it's fair.
Yeah. He's got a couple flashes of brilliance every once in a while. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, definitely, like I said, just an interesting style that I think paved the way for a lot of other things to pass in the art world, and bridged a gap, if you will. But it's not just not my thing.
Yeah, if he was a card in a tarot deck, he would be the fool.
Oh, absolutely.
That's for sure. Now, I think of him as a trash cat through and through.
That's true. I don't think I'd want to hang out with him though.
Dude, oh, come on. I would relapse with this man all the time.
Very short bouts.
See, I would have been Paul Gauguin.
Yeah.
I would have been partying, getting assaulted by Van Gogh.
You party with him for a little while, he does some wild shit, and it's like, I was never here.
I was like, I'm not quite that crazy. See ya.
I know you're in the hospital and all right now, and you just had a big meltdown, but I gotta go.
Well, rest in sunflowers. Go. It was nice. It was nice learning about you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You got anything you want to take a look at or say before we close out?
No, I'm ready to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I feel good about this one. I really enjoy these deep artist dives every now and again.
This was probably the deepest artist dive. We had more pages of any other, more notes than we had of any other subject we ever did work on.
There's a lot about him, and those letters are so cool. Check those out for sure. And don't forget, stick around. We have a very cool artist who isn't nearly as crazy or dead as Van Gogh. We're going to play this track, Spoiled Little Brat by Sonefuck. Check her out on Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, @Sonefuck. Stick around for that for a sec, because it's so cool. And I feel like the track title, Spoiled Little Brat, is so in tune with what Van Gogh was at his truest self. Any dishonors? Advice? You got it?
I'm all good.
All right. Well, fuck the Supreme Court and free the jewels.
Absolutely fuck the Supreme Court. Good call on that.
Shit's been crazy. I didn't even want to get started on any of the politics because I was predicting these things.
Yeah.
Listen back 10 episodes.
No, you're right. You did.
Oh my God. And free the jewels. We got to get these vape bans gone.
Yeah. To
the important matters.
Got to get the vapes back in the hands of the kids.
In the kids. I want every grade school kid to have a grape jelly vape and a peanut butter one where they can make peanut butter and jelly vapes. This is what really matters, and no one's talking about it except us.
I want every kid ripping cotton by the time they're in high school.
Blowing fat-ass clouds
big,
like Van Gogh.
Fat, chunky motherfuckers. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John. Really looking forward to checking out this new song he did. Check him out on SoundCloud for sure.
Fuck yeah. Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcats on Instagram for news and arts from the show. Also, check out Facebook for the memes.
Facebook for the memes. I will be honest, our social media has devolved into pure trash posting because no one respects my efforts.
Yeah, that's about right.
But it seems to be working better.
It's mostly because Steven doesn't have a lot of time to put together stuff, and then I'm just not going to. I'm being honest, I'm not going to do it.
Trash Brothers.
In it to win it.
If you're bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZXX. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I'll have something new up there soon. And really, shouts out to our honorable mentions. I guess check out the Stop Oil group. I hope they're not terrorists, but they're definitely climate activists, so check them out.
Check out that one homie that lives over in Europe.
Yeah, shouts out to our dude in England. Yeah, check him out. I don't know how you'll do that. But
check him out.
Check out Loving Vincent, the Van Gogh exhibit. If it comes to your city, there's a lot of really lame stuff, but overall it's still really cool, and I had a blast. I definitely honestly would recommend it. And then definitely check out Sewn Fucked. I absolutely love her name. That's such a great name.
Yeah.
And this song's dope as fuck.
That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash. And now, Spoiled Little Brat by Sewn Fucked.
That's a mighty pretty girl.
For the attention, I gotta follow my star, my star. Why would I play my star, baby, my star, baby? All I wanted was a mention. Yeah, I live for the attention. It's been really nice to know you. Stick around and I'ma do my worst. I'm the one you sold your soul to, and I'm thinking it's about my turn.